Happy Friday, and thanks for making it through another week with us here on the Rocketeer Minute, where each and every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
I've got to interrupt you, Hal. I've got to push this button. Here we go.
You're listening to a special Billy Campbell episode on the Rocketeer Minute. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Campbell.
Oh, jeez. You know, it had been a while, and then I thought, oh, it'll be so great to talk with Hal and Jim again, and there you had to push the button.
And then you had to push the button.
It was there. It just keeps blinking at me and just.
You'll appreciate this, Ollie, perhaps very quickly. I got a huge taste of my own medicine last week during AirVenture, our big annual convention here in Oshkosh with the 500,000 people and 10,000 airplanes and all that. One of the things we do during the week is there's a volunteer-run, sort of fully proper AM/FM radio station that sets up on the grounds. And they do news and interviews and sort of what's happening during the show and stuff every time. And I historically... I'm a regular guest at the 7:45 a.m. show with a couple of guys. And me being me over the years, I've just slowly taken over. And I've declared it to be my own show, even though I'm really just a guest on that particular segment. I know, it's hard to believe. It's difficult to imagine.
A wallflower like you. Gosh.
Yes, exactly. A shy, retiring sort. About midway through the week this time, just when they were about to introduce me, somebody pushed a button on me, and this intro starts... And it goes, and it goes, and it goes. It doesn't stop. It is basically like, take the Saturday Night Live opening. So the audience, the Don Pardo style voiceover, the saxophones and things like this. But of course, instead of Saturday Night Live, it's the Hal Bryan Show. Starring Hal Bryan, and it goes, and it goes. I swear to you, this thing ran for almost 3 minutes. And it's listing imaginary guests, like one of the guests listed was a plate of bacon. And this is happening, and it won't stop. It goes and goes and goes till I'm crying. And it actually ran long enough that I was able to regain my composure and sort of come back around, so that after the 3-minute mark, I was able to come on and say, yeah, that sounded about right. That was wholly adequate for my purposes. And then for the next 3 or 4 days, they changed it subtly every day and with different guests and different things. But Bobby Moynihan was always a featured player in the opening, which apparently is a funny sort of thing. So I've got to tell you, I know just how you feel, except I think I ate it up, but perhaps a bit more than you do.
You know what? I do not think I will complain again about the opening.
If you're nice to me, I won't send you the MP3 and you can listen to it.
Oh, I actually do want to hear it. I do want to hear it. So
I will send you one of those, and you can listen to it and imagine my chagrin.
Did they play it on Hug Hal Day? I know.
Yes, actually, I think if I remember right, it may have started on Hug Hal Day. It may have been the day after, but as you've seen, Hug Hal Day has continued at least through Monday with a waitress at a restaurant. So,
excusing me, but
yes.
It begs the question: what is Hug Hal Day?
Well, Billy, come here and I'll show you. Come on.
Easy. Back in for Oshkosh, at AirVenture, we were deciding, since Hal had to take a hiatus from his recording duties on this particular podcast,
even though that was invisible to the listener because we record ahead,
didn't miss a day. So, but we decided on having Hug Hal Day, and so we announced it on Twitter and on Facebook. And sure enough, there were not total strangers. They knew who Hal was, but they were coming up and hugging Hal at random points in the show. And actually, he got little tchotchkes and trinkets along the way.
Exactly. One of my buddies, known as the workaholic rather, on Twitter, came up to me, and I was just sitting there in my golf cart for a moment. Somebody comes up and says, "Are you Hal Bryan?" "Yes." "I have a present for you." And he reaches in his jacket. I don't know what's going to happen. And he comes out with with one of the little Rocketeer candy dispensers, the little helmet that has, and still had the candy in it, which I've been expressly warned not to eat. And he gave it to me, and then he said, "Well, I guess it's Hug Hal Day, so I suppose we should probably do this." And so got a picture of us together and everything else. And it happened several more times throughout the week.
That's wonderful. That's heartwarming.
It really is something, isn't it? It was amazing to run into people who knew about it. Even our local sort of AM talk radio station. It was a guy that I've listened to in the mornings for several years, but hadn't met him. he recognized me by the nerdy stuff on my golf cart. He stopped me, said, "Can we do a quick interview about what you do at EA?" Sure. And then we get 2 minutes into it. He says, "Let's talk about your podcast." And I'm thinking he's talking about the work one I do for the aviation-related stuff. And he said, "You do the Rocketeer Minute, and you've got the star of the movie, Billy Campbell, is on this podcast frequently. How did this happen?" And I sort of look around. This is not really what I'm here to talk about this week, but since you asked, and so we had a nice chat about that. So our reputation exceeds us.
Well, I'm happy to have been part of it.
You've brought the legend even bigger. So.
Yes, like it or not, sir, you're along for the ride.
Yay!
Wow. Well, I don't know how to segue into this, but we've got to get to minute 75 is right here on our laps.
Right.
And we're seeing Jenny's back in bed. She climbed out of bed, looked around a bit. She's kind of like it was kind of Groundhog Day. She got out of her bed, looked around, and she had 6 more weeks of being Neville's prisoner. So she goes back into bed, and Neville has come in with his recovery brandy.
Well, first, let me say that I know technically it's not part of this minute, but the what do you call the transition into the scene? I remember specifically them having the idea. You know how the Hollywood Hills turn into the folds of the pillows.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Which
is wonderful.
We talked about that one a little bit, and isn't that just beautiful? And
it's beautiful, and I remember them having the idea and setting it up, and they shot those pillows and her lying on them actually out in back of the Bulldog Cafe. That was nowhere near the set of the mansion.
Really? So it goes from Valencia onto the set. Wow.
Yeah,
I think never would have guessed that in a million years.
Yeah, I think maybe I don't know what it was. Maybe we had already shot that stuff before the Bulldog Cafe and we're out of those sets. But then they set up a little alcove and lit it properly and shot Jennifer sleeping on the pillows. And I remember them arranging the pillows so that they had sort of a video still of the Hollywood Hills, and they arranged the pillows to make that transition.
And I've scrolled back to minute 73. Yeah, it is okay. That one, there's one tight shot. You can't see where she is or what she's doing. So they must have just thrown the gown in the bed, and thrown the gown in the truck and taken it up to Valencia. Here, put this on, get some lipstick on you, and off we go.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that's such a subtle thing and such a nice touch, but you can just see the time and effort it took to set it up. And you'd have to be really confident in that idea that it was, that it was sort of worth doing. Because you see people fussing and say, no, the mountains are shaped like this, not like that. And this isn't going to line up right. And we'd be fussing with the sheets and the pillows and everything. It's something that you would notice if that transition was more abrupt, but you don't necessarily sit in the theater and say, "Oh, cool, the mountains line up with the sheets." But it's such a lovely little touch.
It really is.
Yeah, it's right up there with the Paramount Mountain in Indiana
exactly,
Jones.
With the gong or whatever other transition they would use.
Yeah.
I just, it finally hit me what the pillars have reminded me of. We were talking yesterday about concrete pillars and those mosaics. But it looks a lot like having many daughters in my family. That looks like a Pandora chain that you have to buy the individual charm bracelets, which kind of matches up with the charm that Jenny's wearing. Those
the oranges and a little airplane,
Rubik's
and all
cube
that
looking
other stuff.
Yeah, but this was well before the Pandora craze took off about a decade later.
What is the now I know what Hug Hal Day is. I really need to know.
Oh, okay.
I need to know what the Pandora craze is.
Pandora is it's a big thing. If you have girls who were in high school about 10 years ago, Pandora was a bracelet company that sold in shopping malls in America and Western Europe. These little cubes, and they have a hole through them, and you can thread them onto necklaces or bracelets, and the bracelets come in, and they're like limited edition. It's kind of like Pogs or anything else. There's like a limited edition of these different shaped cubes, and they're added onto a bracelet, and kind of a large version of that would be that pillar. If you can imagine that wrapped around somebody's arm, that's what it's like.
Gotcha. And now, as I understand, the Pandora things are really much more like a sort of slightly modernized version of the old classic charm bracelets. Just like, because you do see Pandora charms with different. You get exclusive ones at different places and things like that. And actually, a couple of people were asking us last week, do you have a Pandora charm for your big air show? And it's not something that we have, but who knows?
Wow. See, that's and probably when they come out, if they come out with it, it'll be just in time that the craze will be over.
Yes, exactly. So you're familiar with how we work, then?
Yes.
Yes. We are a nonprofit, always about a week behind the cutting edge.
Wow.
Wait, but do you actually have 10,000 airplanes at the...
10 to 12,000, yes. So that come in for it.
Moly.
It is pretty amazing. It's pretty spectacular to see.
Well, no wonder you had to disappear.
Yes, about 3,000 of them are sort of show airplanes that fit into one category or other, and then the others are, sort of in the parking lot. People fly in and camp under the wing, and then come to see the rest of the show. So
wow.
It's pretty remarkable.
I have to experience that someday.
I believe you do, and I believe we have a small job for you whenever you decide you can work that out, my friend.
I don't know if I'll fit into the Jodhpurs anymore, but
well, wait.
I have a helmet you can borrow.
We can try.
You need to work on getting the folks who are writing Cardinal to put in an international incident that happens just over the border in Wisconsin, and you need to go find the murderer at an air show.
Yes. So I say with an airplane. Just throw in an airplane and we're good. But we dearly love to have you out next time we screen The Rocketeer. Like I said, last time was maybe 5 years ago or so. And I was asked with about 5 minutes lead time if I could come up and introduce it. And I was...
Out of my way!
Yes, everybody move. The guy who was tapped to introduce it just realized, I've never seen the movie, I don't know anything about it. And somebody said, this sounds like a job for Hal. So up I went, and let's just all assume that I killed it on stage. Can we just assume that?
Absolutely assume that you killed it for sure.
Wow. Well, speaking of putting everybody in a dead faint, this is
Ooh, there's a segue, Jim.
I tried, but
you always find your way back.
We're watching.
Really well done. Well done, Jim.
I'm trying to keep up. There's not that many episodes left, so I've got to work all these in where I can.
Right.
We're watching as we talked with Dr. Delemba on Wednesday. It provided that Jenny's heart didn't stop from all that chloroform, that was enough to drop her in 5 seconds. Whatever was in that bottle of smelling salts manages to restart her heart and get her up and around.
Well, which is interesting, too, because, she's feigning being unconscious at this point.
Yeah.
So that means she's having to pretend not to, or not to smell this stuff, which I did a bit of reading on smelling salts. It's usually an ammonium carbonate and water. You're just basically smelling ammonia.
Yeah.
And it's been around forever, the 13th century, and things have been around. What surprised me is this seemed like one of those old tropes, like make me a bromo and things like that was sort of out of favor. But what I didn't realize is that players in the NFL and stuff still use them as stimulants, and they think that's the thing that sort of gets them sort of charged up and ready to go. So I guess they'll try anything, and we hear that in lifting and hockey as well.
I have seen this in the world of boxing. My dad used to take me to Golden Gloves matches, and one of the things that they always the side guys had in their kit was a thing of smelling salts, just to make sure they could wake up whoever got clonked on the head and see how they were reacting. You just needed them around to respond, like how many fingers, but first you got to wake them up.
And chloroform, for those of us, what exactly is it? I've never known.
Chloroform is a form of ether. It's a trichloromethane is the chemical term for it. It's mostly used in movies. About 100 years ago, chloroform was a common thing. They would drip it on top of a funnel. They put a cloth funnel over your face and drip it slowly so that you'd have a certain percentage of the air would be full of this ether, and then that would knock you out. It's generally not used nowadays because, one, it's very difficult to administer on an even basis, and it's also very flammable. I mean, it's ether, so it's very explosive. And the other part of it is that it sometimes puts you out forever. So it's just not a good idea. Most things nowadays are done like, fentanyl and stuff like that. It's all intravenous. It's a little bit easier to control.
So, Jim, we will not be publishing a recipe for making your own chloroform on the RocketeerMinute.com.
No, don't have to look that up on the internet like everybody else.
Yes, find it yourself. You feel for Jenny here because she's been knocked out with chloroform, and she's woken up, but now she's got to pretend she's not. Then she's inhaling ammonia. We said yesterday, I can't imagine anything I'd rather have less after being conked out with chloroform than some brandy. But today I realize I would rather have the brandy than breathing the ammonia.
Yeah, there's nothing.
But what's going on in her system? Here's chloroform, here's some ammonia. Now have some brandy while you're at it. Then go in the garage and start the car. I don't know what else.
Yes,
what else?
Diesel
do
fumes might
girl.
help. It just
Yes.
it's difficult. And she doesn't actually drink it. If you watch this thing, she just kind of holds it in her hand, and it's like, I'm not drinking this. No way.
Right.
No.
She's smarter than that.
She's
luckily.
too smart for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. She's
That old chestnut.
Old chestnut.
I watch Timothy Dalton in this, and I really just want to go get out the scissors and cut myself a Neville Sinclair mustache. My push broom needs to be just modified. So
He is just delightful in this part. I marvel at his performance every time I see it. I really think it's the best thing of many lovely things he's done, but really the best. He just was.
I agree.
He just ate it up.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Well, and it's amazing in this scene because he's exposed himself to her as a villain with the chloroform and everything else. But as she comes to and he's explaining he's being blackmailed, he's a victim too. He thinks he has a chance at maintaining the fiction and sort of keeping some sort of good position in her eyes. And, certainly keeping his career going as the number 3 box office star in America, or number 3 joik, if you prefer.
Number 3 jerk. And he's big without, as the fellow says in that article I sent you, Jim.
yeah,
He's big without being over the top. He
doesn't have to twirl the mustache. He just gets to be that, just right in that line. He has that like Darth Vader quality about him. Just kind of
he hits a home run.
Yeah. He's so, and you could tell he. I'm sure he was having a lot of fun with this. I mean, when you were working with him, it seems like he was just eating it up. It's such a great role to have.
He really did seem like he was having a absolute gas. I think hadn't he come off of Bond?
Yeah, he was just finishing up Bond, and it was like,
that's right.
Actually, he might even
the second one had come out fairly recently, and
I think I recall him. I never wanted to be too much of a fanboy, but if I'm not mistaken, I had a momentary conversation with him about Bond, and I just remember him seeming disappointed, and I can't remember exactly why, but the impression I got was that he was just delighted to be able to play this part.
Yeah,
it shows.
It really is good. And I from what I've talked with other actors, it seems like the villain roles are more fun to do. That you get to be now in your career. Have you been mostly the good guy or bad guy, or what's your ratio? Have you been tracking that at all, or?
I sort of made a transition, actually. With the film I did with J. Lo.
Oh yeah, the Enough, yeah.
And that was really the first time anyone ever let me play an out-and-out sort of bad guy, and then nobody had a problem with me being a bad guy after that. And yes, I would concur with that sort of notion that it's more enjoyable to play bad guys, because I think simply there are kind of more options when you're a bad guy. A bad guy can pretend to be a good guy, but a good guy is basically just a good guy. He doesn't have as much. There aren't as many options for behavior.
I have to tell you, I hadn't seen Enough until about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I got it. I got it out and watched. You were a really bad guy, and I have to tell you, you were just an absolute rat, and it was.
You were the number 1 joint in that movie.
Well, it was so fun because at that point in time I was playing the world's most sickeningly perfect boyfriend on Once and Again, and which was a wonderful show, but he was kind of too perfect. they really didn't, honestly, even as one of the producers admitted to me later, they really didn't know what to do with him. But I got the job in enough during Once and Again, and I felt like Timothy must have felt doing this in The Rocketeer. I just had a field day. I just had a great time. It was so much fun. Everything about it was so much fun. I don't think I ever set foot in my trailer except to put a costume on. I was just sitting in a chair on the set by the camera the whole time. But in fairness, that's pretty much my MO. Yeah, I had a wonderful time.
Yeah,
wonderful time.
I can imagine the last fight scene in that thing must have just been head over heels, literally head over heels. But it just
it was pretty. It was a lot of fun. They let us do most of our own stuff.
Wow.
In fact, all of it, except the backward fall into the glass table.
Yeah.
Which I had no desire to do. But Jan and I did nearly everything as far as I recall. There were a few. I mean, she's a tough gal.
Yeah.
She's a dancer, and she's got some zizz to
Yes,
her.
absolutely.
To her, and yeah.
She's just been fantastic recently in Shades of Blue.
I
haven't seen that, but
it's terrific. It's a police drama, and it's one of those shows. It's full of anti-heroes, and the best person on the show is the one you can relate to the most is the cop who's only mostly corrupt. And it sort of goes downhill from there. So what's sort of, the point of view where everybody's sort of, it's all the cops and they're all sort of dirty and everybody's doing their best. And you've got these just incredibly haggard and wild-eyed Ray Liotta playing opposite Jennifer Lopez.
I love Ray Liotta.
Oh, me too. And the two of them together, my God, there isn't even room on the screen for both of them. I've certainly seen her in films. I know her a little bit more as a singer and from... what was it? American Idol? Was that the show that she judged on?
I think so.
One of the music competitions. Yeah. So you sort of see her there. Yeah. You forget what an actress she is.
She was great. I think her best performance, of the ones I've seen, was with Clooney in, maybe that was her first film, was it?
She did Selena. I remember seeing her. Oh yeah, that was a great one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was really
something. I really liked her in Selena. She did a great job in that.
Oh, who would go see that? That's such a girls' movie.
Yes.
Yeah,
Jim's daughter drug him to see that.
That's right. Actually, my daughter, I think had that movie memorized. She loved that film. But she's just fantastic, and she really knows how to pick good parts. And again, you have another good movie with a Jennifer. So there you go.
There you go.
Well done.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, Jennifer in this movie. There's my segue. Which is
okay. There you go.
Played, sir.
That was pretty good. That was not too jagged a line. There we go. Gosh, someday I want to write a book just so I can have Timothy Dalton narrate it.
He does have that voice.
Dulcet tones.
But I don't think we're the types of guys, Jim, that would harp on it or bring it up if there was. But honestly, I don't think there's a bad performance in this movie. Lisa Peterson gives one line badly, but that's on purpose. She does a great job. She does a perfect job of being a bad actress, and then she nails it the second time.
She does a great job of doing it well. So
yeah.
I think all of the casting is really just pitch perfect.
Of course, it's gone out of my head who the casting director was for this movie, but Billy would know. I think. I remember it was Junie Taylor at Star Trek, but I don't know.
Junie Lowry.
Junie Lowry,
at Star Trek, but I cannot remember who the casting director was.
Even as we speak, I have a feeling that Hal is probably looking at
typing
his
quietly,
IMDb.
Play for time. Billy, vamp a moment.
Well, let me
almost
think.
There.
What was your favorite item at the craft table, craft service table?
Did you have the sandwiches with the crust cut off, or
usually it's Raisinettes. If there are Raisinettes on the table, that's my Achilles heel.
Really?
And
now, do you have that in a rider?
No, I don't. I don't do the rider thing. I just eat with the peons. No, I'm Raisinettes. If Raisinettes are on the table, then I'm it's all over. I mean, I'll make an effort to stay away from them, but then I will awaken and discover myself at the table with my fist in my mouth and Raisinettes falling down my throat.
It's just somebody yelling at you about missing the call.
Yeah.
So
I will drop in the name is Nancy Foy.
I was just there.
Nancy Foy. Foy.
I was just clicking on Nancy Foy and ready to say, well, I bet Nancy Foy wouldn't have put up with that on The Rocketeer or something. Some sort of segue as if we just knew it off the top of our heads. But well done, Jim.
Quick typing fingers. That's
Yes, indeed.
And she's got an incredible background of loading up really good movies. She did Jumanji immediately after The Rocketeer, actually, or just a couple of years after.
That makes sense. Another Joe Johnston film.
Yes. And
Also,
there's
an October Sky. And so she's the go-to caster for Joe Johnston movies.
Oh, that's what I meant to do, and I meant to do in the last couple of weeks to watch October Sky, but I forgot to do it.
Okay.
I'll get round to it.
That's well
Did you get to watch?
worth
Did you get to watch Rocketeer again?
No, not yet. Not yet. I have it on
the way.
I have the wonderful Blu-ray that you guys sent me, signed, by the way.
Now, you may want to get another copy. You probably don't want to risk damaging that one by putting it in the player. As, Jim and I don't sign a lot of things as a matter of course. So by virtue of scarcity, one never knows.
Yeah, she's quite a wow. I would like to have had her. Her career was a great career. That's fantastic, and she's still going. So,
and Jim, quickly speaking of Jumanji, we've talked about hopefully booking an old and dear friend of mine, Peter Zink, on the show, who's in the prop business, and we're currently working on Amazon's The Man in the High Castle. But he worked on Jumanji, and we ended up with a number of sort of screen used things from the movie in our collection that we had sort of bought and sold for a while. But you never know who knows whom.
I have a question about this particular scene that we're looking at when the two shots here with Timothy Dalton and Jennifer, pretty much as close face to face as you can get. When you're doing camera work that close, are you very aware of your elbows and stuff? I would think that you've got a Panavision camera hovering 6 inches off your left shoulder. That must be kind of nerve-wracking.
When
they're shooting, it looks kind of tight. I'm assuming that they're not zoomed in. It seems like they're trying to go for shallow focus and stuff.
Yeah.
So
you kind of get used to it. I mean, I've been in situations where I was the camera was so close that I was actually, part of my arm or hand was sort of holding the camera or holding the cameraman to keep myself at a certain distance from the lens. In fact, I was just doing that last night in an insert of Cardinal using a cell phone. And so the camera operator actually had his hand was holding my wrist. My hand was holding the cell phone. And we were all sort of locked there in a cinematic...
just waiting for the magic hour and just don't call yet. Okay, man.
Showbiz.
It can be. It's funny. I remember doing a film with Ricky Gervais. He's so bloody funny that it's very, very difficult not to laugh, even when you're off camera, which is, of course, you should desperately try not to do, because ruining somebody's take is just about the worst thing you can do on a film set. But they were shooting Ricky's close-up, and the cameraman was sitting on the couch with the camera, and I was sitting just off camera, very tight, with my head resting on the cameraman's shoulder. The gal, I can't remember her name. I've worked with her a couple of times. The Naked Truth sitcom. Anyway, she was sitting on the couch behind me with her head on my shoulder. And then right in the middle of Ricky's take, I felt this humping on my shoulder, and it was her, and she was laughing, trying not to laugh because Ricky
Tia Leone.
Tia Leone. She was trying not to laugh because Ricky was so funny, and then of course I started trying not to laugh, and then I'm kind of humping the cameraman's shoulder, and then he went, and the whole thing was over with. Because once he starts vibrating the camera, the shot is ruined. So,
but at least at that point, it's not your fault, right?
No. It wasn't my fault. She started it.
And could you ask Tia Leone to be on the show just so I can tell her I really like her a lot? Would that be wrong?
That would not be wrong.
Okay. Someday when you do the Ghost Town Minute, that's
there
when
you
can.
Or the Madam Secretary Minute, or for me it was Deep Impact that really sort of cemented her for me.
That's right.
Well, one of these days we've got to get back to talking about the Rocketeer, but
Hey, we keep circling back.
We do. It's all there. I had a friend of mine who was making a horror movie. This was out of like film school, and he had shot everything on Bell and Howell 16mm cameras, and he moved up to Panavision in his first feature film. And so he had these giant Panavision cameras, and he had hired a guy that had done all the special effects for his college movies. And had the guy come in and said, "Well, we're going to have a riot, and we're going to start throwing tomatoes. I want to have somebody throw a tomato right at the camera, so we got a good picture of that." And the camera operator stood up and said, "That is a $60,000 Super Panavision camera. You are not going to be throwing anything near my camera." So they redesigned the scene so it was less intersectional. So, yeah, don't mess with rented equipment. Anyway, we were kind of here at the very end of the movie, ending with poor Jenny making a half a closed eye on the very last frame of this film. This is definitely at a different time because her sty isn't there, so which is
that's right.
It's nice and clear.
But the dimple in Timothy Dalton's chin remains.
Yes,
as it always does.
Just so perfect too. It's
we should all be so lucky.
Yeah.
Although, Billy, it was funny. I read a review somewhere on Cardinal. We might have mentioned this before, but it was talking about how your scruffy beard just barely manages to tone down your staggering movie star good looks. So enough to sort of make you believable as an actual human being.
I read that, and I found it just as mortifying as my intro on the Rocketeer Minute.
Well, good.
Wow.
We're consistent then.
For season 2, are you less scruffy, more scruffy, or same level of scruff?
Same level of scruff. Same level.
Okay.
But I'm lobbying to be even scruffier in the 3rd season.
Oh, okay. Just downright unkempt. Yes. So,
just promise me no mullet.
No, there will never be a mullet. You will never see a mullet on this head, ever.
Thank goodness. I think we can all sleep well tonight.
In front of the camera, off camera, or anywhere else. In this life or
the next,
there will never be a mullet.
They've got all those Mad Max movies, and you can get on a good franchise there.
It's not happening.
Oh well. Wow. Well, let's pick up next week. We'll look some more at dear old Neville's beautiful mansion and his upstairs architecture and stuff. But we'll talk about that a bit more. And who knows? Billy may join us as he is finishing up his series in Canada. So watch for it. When is it coming out in on the world screen? Do you know any idea?
I don't have that info yet. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. No, I don't know. I can't. Shouldn't even try to guess.
Okay, so anyway, if you're in Canada, keep watching Canadian television, and if you're in England, please watch the BBC. Sometime eventually, season 2 will show up, and you'll get it in whatever format it comes out. But keep looking. If you haven't seen season 1 yet, please go check back because it's stunning to watch. I watched it again last week, and it holds up very well on a review. I enjoyed it a lot. And I have to tell you the high school scene where you're in the lower levels with that continuous shot that really it's very good, and it really makes me seasick, but it's a very, very good shot. Great stuff there. But let's pick all the Rocketeer parts. We'll get back to 1938 next week. Please, if you have conversation that we're missing, that we have. If you're going to talk to us more about asking what's going on in the Rocketeer, you can tell us about what we're missing on several different social media. Find us on Twitter at Rocketeer Minute. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute. Go to the big site rocketeerminute.com, and you can get all these previous episodes all caught up. And we also have summaries and pictures and bios of our guests and stuff. It's all out there. So check it out, rocketeerminute.com.
You can find me on the Twitter thing that I never check at what is it? W.O. Campbell.
W.O. Campbell. William Oliver Campbell's out there. W.O. Campbell on Twitter. So and he's usually linking to us every time we have him on. He seems to retweet our show. We're very grateful for that. Yeah.
And William Oliver Campbell. Have you ever considered running for president? Because that's a very presidential name.
You know what? Only lately have I considered running for president. And
I'm telling you, you get that picture of you with the flag on the roof of the Griffith Observatory. Yeah. It just screams America.
I never before felt that I could that I would qualified to think that I would be able to do any kind of a job as president until recently.
Well, I know a couple of guys who are ready to sign up to be in the cabinet.
There we have
it. Campbell 2020. You heard it here first.
Oh boy! Wow. Well, let's see. We can't. We'll have to give equal time to everybody else that's on the other movies. So we'll find out what's going to happen next week. But please join us here. Oh, and don't forget iTunes, Google Play, and leave us a review on iTunes. That always helps. Just look for Rocketeer Minute and hit subscribe, and you'll get more of this stuff just spilling out of your radios and iPods at the touch of a button. So we will talk with you all tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but Monday. We'll see you all. Have a great weekend, and join us here next week on the Rocketeer Minute. So until next time, over and out.
Over and out, boys.
Go get him, kid.